Good day, folks. Everything new under the sun. There is a lot of World War III news out there. We're going to take a look at several articles, but I want to detail why I think it's important. What does the beginning of World War III mean to us? What does it set us up for? And this is kind of the I think the differentiator for what I'm saying versus what I've heard a lot of other people say. I think the situation in the world builds up in terms of the lawlessness, in terms of the deception, and world war and famine and economic collapse. I believe it grows from here to a point where we are all desperate. And those who don't have faith in Jesus Christ, and don't believe that He will sustain them, will believe in the Antichrist because they believe that the Antichrist will sustain them. That's exactly what the Antichrist is going to come in and promise. He's going to say, look, I can get you out of World War III. I can save you from worldwide famine. I can create a new economic system and save you from the collapse of the economy worldwide. I can deliver you from all that. And that's exactly what they're going to fall for, the great deception. Now, I believe that there's war in 2024. You can see the timeline of the return of the Lord there. I believe Ezekiel 38 and 39 happen. Prior to that, Isaiah 17, the destruction of Damascus, happens even prior to Ezekiel 38 and 39. And if you look at the situation in Israel with Hamas and Hezbollah, you can certainly see that it is edging towards that. Now with news coming out that Iran has 30 times the uranium that stockpiled that was agreed to, under Obama. So they are getting ready to deliver a nuclear weapon, even though they say their religion, Islam, doesn't allow for it. I think ultimately the leaders in control are going to push for that. And so they're also going to use obviously their proxy groups, and so that battle is still going. The Houthis are still shooting down American drones and that sort of thing. But what I want to look at is an interesting image that I found on the internet, and I think it kind of shows what I understand as the in relation to the last days. So 70th week of Daniel. So the first column, which has the first, second, and third seal. Now, I'm not going to say this is exactly right, but I think this is more towards what I understand to be the truth, the future for us than what some others have presented. Now, the first column is the first half of the tribulation. So the tribulation, that that 7 years, that's what they're referring to there. The first half is the tribulation. The second half is the great tribulation. You read Revelation chapter 6, and it describes tribulation and great tribulation. Tribulation is what man brings upon man because of man's sin. That's our own fault. But the great tribulation is the wrath of God on the world and on man. So the beginnings of sorrows happens in the first tribulation, and I believe even before that. I think we've seen the start of the beginning of sorrows. And again, those include the first, second, and third seals. The war and the famine, the economic trouble, and the disease. And then it goes into the midpoint of the tribulation, which is an interesting identifier there. The days of vengeance, the fourth seal, the death and the enforcement of the mark. I think that likely comes at the start of the 7-year period, to be honest. So I would put that into the first column because the mark, the Antichrist has to rule and reign for a certain period of time before he sits on the throne in the third temple, and that triggers the wrath of God. And then the second half of the tribulation, which I think is accurate, is the day of the Lord, and that's the point at which the abomination of desolation happens. The Antichrist sits on the throne in the third temple, declares himself to be God, and again, that's God's red line. And then the Lord's judgment and wrath comes upon the wicked. And so the Antichrist gets 3.5 years of the 7 years that he got the world to agree to peace for. So a lot of things are going to kind of happen in that time span. It's a lot of time, but at the same time, it's a very short time, in the history of the world. Let's take a look at some items as it relates to the war that is going to escalate and manifest so far as to causing the world, bringing the world to their knees, the citizens to be so desperate that they will call for and accept a world leader. There's a pushback for the World Health Organization and the treaty. Well, when the Antichrist comes along, people are going to be so desperate, they're going to take whatever they can get. The non-Christians. The Christians will recognize this. I think the Christians will know who this Antichrist figure is, but the non-Christians won't. And he will be revealed at a point in time, and the Antichrist is revealed to the rest of the people, the non-Christians. He's revealed as the evil person that he is at the abomination of desolation. Before that, they just think he's a great world leader. They think, well, he fixed the economy. He gave us the mark of the beast. They don't call it that, but he fixed the economic system. He provided food, and he created some sort of peace and security, and so he must be good. Up until, of course, the revealing, which is a Thessalonians chapter 2 verse here. So let's take a look at this. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. This is from BibleGateway.com. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together unto him, so that's the rapture, that ye be not soon shaken in mind or be troubled. So that suggests that in the last days, your mind is going to be shook if it's able to be shook. And were a lot of minds shook during the pandemic? Yeah, it caused a lot of fear in people. Be not troubled, neither by spirit nor by word. Don't be troubled by the words of man, nor by letter as from us, as the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means. And that suggests that there's going to be great deception, and there will be a lot of deceiving in the last days. For that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first. Now, this is the King James Version. Falling away, I think there's a lot of Christians who are going to fall away from the faith when the going gets hard, when the deception gets thick. Was there great deception? I can't even say the word because they'll flag my video. But, in the last 4 years, was there great deception? There was great deception. And yes, I have been warned on my YouTube channel for speaking about deception about periods of time. For that day shall not come except the falling away first. Did a lot of Christians leave the church? During that period, it was a perfect excuse for them, right? Well, we can't go for health and safety. And then they just stopped going altogether. They stopped going to church. A lot of Christians just fell off the map at that point. And then, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. So this revealing of the man of sin, I think the Christians will know who he is as soon as he comes onto the world stage. We're not going to have the wool pulled over our eyes. We'll be reading our Bible and saying, hey, that guy kind of looks like who is spoken of in the Bible. But the rest of the world, the people who didn't read their Bible, they're going to think he's a great guy. They're going to think he's doing a lot of good. So the revealing of the Antichrist is not at the beginning of the 7-year period. Otherwise, no one would vote for him. No one would go along with him, right? So he is revealed at the midpoint. So the falling away comes first, and then, so the falling away comes during the first 3.5 years where there's a lot of persecution against the Christians, the faithful, to the point where, if the Christians didn't take the mark of the beast, and they shouldn't have, otherwise they lose their salvation, right? They're not saved if they take the mark of the beast. They can't, they won't have any food to eat. They won't have any money. They'll be relying 100% on the Lord Jesus Christ. They will be relying 100% on their faith, because they won't be able to barter with anybody. And if anybody does barter with you or trade food with you who is part of the system, they will likely go to jail. So there's going to be a lot of interest by 99% of the civilians and the citizens of that day. There's going to be a lot of a push on them to not break the law, because they don't want to go to jail. And so they're not going to have anything to do with you Christians. You Christians are going to be the outcast, the starving. And so so it's going to be, people are going to be troubled and shaken in mind. And it's saying here, don't be shaken in mind or be troubled, neither by spirit nor by word. The day of the Lord is at hand. We know what's coming. We read the Bible. We know what the ending is. So it goes on further. So the man of sin be revealed. I believe that's the midpoint, the abomination of desolation. And then the world, the citizens of the world understand, who the Antichrist is and what it actually means. And they say, oops, the Christians were right all along, but it's too late at that time. They've already made their decision. Verse 4, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped. So this, it says, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So the Son, the man of sin is revealed when? When he sits on the throne in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This is when the man of sin is revealed, not at the beginning of the 7-year period, folks. And so the falling of the way happens prior to the revealing of the man of sin, and that's all related to that midpoint of that 7-year period. So, all that said, I believe that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, just as, let me see, is it here? Yeah, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse ride. I think we're in the beginnings of sorrows because they don't just all of a sudden come out of nowhere. There's a buildup to them in terms of economic collapse, the debt that's accumulated, the corruption that grows in the governments of the world. Is there any corruption in your government? Is there any lawlessness? Is there any lawfare that's happening? I think everybody who is listening to this, to my voice, they know exactly what is happening in the world. It's happening in their country. This is not just happening in communist North Korea or dictatorship Russia. The corruption and the lawfare is happening in your own country, and you can see it. It is obvious to everybody who is half paying attention. So, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse ride, and I think that's going to happen before the Antichrist is revealed. Indeed, we get to the first and second seal even before the Antichrist. That's not what I want. I want this one here. Even before the Antichrist comes onto the stage in terms of world power. Remember, he's not going to be able to rise to power without some massive world conflict and economic collapse that forces everybody to say, you know what, I've got no other option. I need to accept this world government and this world leader, this dictator. So all that happens. So let's proceed. I don't want to belabor the point. This is zerohedge.com. Putin is threatening that the West's dense populations, now he was speaking of Europe here specifically, the West's dense populations in small land masses in response to NATO escalation. So NATO is escalating, Putin saying, look, we have nuclear weapons, it would be a shame, if we had to use them, because most of Europe lives in small individual little countries with a very dense population. That is prime target for nuclear weapons of mass destruction. They would kill a lot of people if they go after them. Now, you go after Canada or even the United States, well, that's a bit harder because they're a bit more dispersed. There's wide open spaces. It's going to be harder, hard to take out a whole country. But, a whole country in Europe is easy to take out with a couple nuclear weapons. So he is directly threatening the West, specifically Europe, with weapons of mass destruction, whatever that may be. Kremlin says NATO weapons to be hit in any country from where Russia may be attacked. So they're putting it on the table. They're saying, look, every country who attacks us is now fair game. Are they attacking? Is there fires? And I've said this before. Are there poultry farms catching on fire? Are there pipelines blowing up? Are there trains derailing? Are there cyber attacks and systems down all over the place and cell phones going down and all these sorts of things? There is. It's all happening in Europe, a lot in Poland. If mainstream media would only start reporting on this, it would be incredible, I think, how many things are happening if you gathered them all up. The die has been cast. The Russians have issued a nuclear map of Europe. They are targeting all NATO bases on European soil. So Europe is the easiest, obvious, closest target for Russia. They're going to go after them first. It's kind of like Russia and Psalm 38. They're going to go after the inner circle of nations before they go to the outer circle and Iran and such. Because if they hit the outer circle first, well, the inner circle is going to attack them, right? So similar with Russia, they're going to go for the near neighbors who are attacking them first. take care of them, and then they can look further afield to take out, Western nations like Canada, United States, Australia, wherever they think they need to go. So Russians have a map, and they've got the targets ready. They did their nuclear drills, and it goes on. Against the background of attacks on strategic early warning radars, which I spoke of in the prior videos, of a nuclear attack in the depths of Russia, the Russians issued, not by chance, a nuclear map of Europe, in which they also put Greece. So there's even a detailed listing of bases. Buchel Air Force Base in Germany, Klein-Brogel Air Force Base in Belgium, Volkel Air Base, Netherlands, Aviano and Getty Tor Air Bases in Italy, Incirlik Air Base in Turkey, and they have more on there. Greece belongs to the general designation of other NATO countries, together with Spain, Bulgaria, and Romania. So they've got their targets set. They've been doing drills. They're ready to go. And the problem is they know that Ukraine is getting F-16s. So Lavrov providing F-16s to Ukraine is a nuclear message from NATO. Why? Well, F-16s can carry nuclear weapons. And at this point, they have to assume that any F-16 flying potentially has a nuclear weapon on board. And they can't afford to not assume that, because a nuclear weapon, correctly placed, could be an existential threat to Russia. So they're going to go after these F-16s and any NATO. And let me tell you this, Russia has been very, very patient. They've been delaying retaliation for months and months on this one. And I think they're getting ready to go ahead. This could be getting ready to go hot. Interestingly, China is ready to invade Taiwan. Will they start at the same time? I've said that before. The door of the madhouse opens. This is Warners 247. NATO will strike through Ukraine strategic targets deep in Russia. It says the war in Ukraine is now developing into an open Russia-NATO war. We all knew this was that. Mainstream media doesn't want to admit it because it would make the citizens afraid and have fear. And the government doesn't want the citizens to even know about this, let alone get scared and start telling their politicians that maybe we should get out of Ukraine and stop supporting Ukraine, right? So the government is going to hide this from us as long as possible. But, for anybody with half a brain cell and one eyeball open, sees that this is 100% NATO versus Russia. They are fighting already hand in hand. Dutch foreign minister has confirmed he supports Ukrainian F-16 raids deep in Russia. The Netherlands is not against the use of F-16 fighters for Ukraine for strikes on territory of Russia. Again, when these come into the picture, what's Russia going to do? They know these are supplied, paid for, even probably flown by members of NATO, not Ukrainian Air Force folks. So they're going to go after them. Let's take a look at this. And what does NATO want? Well, Macron, president of France, wants to go to war with Russia. This is what Le Pen says. This is what we've been saying about the United States. They want war. They're not talking about peace. Have you heard anybody in the West talk about peace in any earnest amount? Certainly not. If they wanted peace, they would have peace summit after peace summit with Putin or Lavrov or whoever it may be. They're not. The NATO, the West, is escalating this. Every step of the way, NATO does not want peace. It is obvious to anybody who has been following this all along. Now, what is the timing of this? I've said it before. I think it would be good timing for when China invades Taiwan. You open multiple theaters of war. You have Ukraine, Russia. You have Israel, Iran, and then China, Taiwan. Certainly, the United States cannot fight all these, in all these theaters of war at the same time. NATO would have a very hard time, and NATO isn't even ready for it. They're not on a war fitting. They're not on war manufacturing. When this goes hot, they're not going to be able to do anything about those three theaters. Maybe they could address one of them, but not all three. Well, here is China. China's ready to fight for Taiwan, but is it ready to pay the price? This is from RT, by the way. This is from Russia Today. It says Beijing is showing it is willing to go to war over Taiwan, and it's preparing for the inevitable consequences behind the scenes. So part of that is getting the war economy going, getting the manufacturing system going, which Russia has already went full, weapons manufacturing mobilization. I'm sure they have agreements between Russia and China. One builds one thing, the other builds the other, and they're going to trade oil and gas and these sorts of things. And this is something that NATO members haven't really started in earnest, although they are starting. There is news now coming out about weapons and ammunition facilities opening up in the United States and kicking into first gear, if not second gear, and getting funding and starting to produce weapons for war. They know it's coming. It's inevitable. They just haven't told the citizens of NATO yet. Although there are countries on the front lines like Poland who are indeed warning citizens now of all-out warfare. So Taiwan is now in the crosshairs, and it makes sense if China and Russia are working together. That China takes Taiwan, distracts the United States, and Russia can do what it needs to in Ukraine. So this is all planned. It's all strategy. And what is going to be the NATO response to this? I don't think NATO can defend Taiwan. I think it's a lost cause. And that's why the United States has spent a lot of money and time moving chip manufacturing over to U.S. Proper, because they probably know that this is going to be lost and they can't really defend it. And it's probably not worth the time, really. But, multiple war fronts is a great time to wage war. And it seems to me similar things happened in World War II, didn't it? Where there was multiple theaters and countries going after other countries. It wasn't just in one location, all right? So in terms of the timeline of the return of the Lord, I think it builds up to a point where there are nuclear weapons dropped. And even the Bible has several incidents of what appears to be the definition of nuclear weapons or the remnants, the aftermath of nuclear weapons being used. And so I think we get to the precipice of World War III, if not, ultimately enter it with nuclear weapons. And whoever is left standing after all that, an Antichrist figure comes in and says, peace, peace, and brings the world to the peace table after that, after the citizens wake up and say, no, we don't want this. But too late then, the economy has crashed and there is famine. All the supply lines and chains are destroyed, and we're desperate. And so we accept a world government. The Christians are going to see through it, but the rest of the world will not. And they will accept this, just like they accepted the thing that happened, was 4 years ago now. They accepted all the lockdowns, all the things that came with that. They listened to mainstream media. They were good little sheep. They did what the government said, even though it's all coming out now that, all the science was not science at all. My goodness, I can't even talk about it all. You look at anything that happened during the last 4 years, the social distancing and the masking. There was no science to back that stuff up. Go Google it yourself. You can see all the reports coming out now, and that was never used for mass pandemics or more mass viral outbreaks in the past. That was all novel, all new stuff that they did. That wasn't the medical doctrine or whatever. That wasn't common medical practice. All that stuff that happened there, but most of us went along with it because what are you going to do? Mainstream is telling us it must be true. They're saying don't question the science, and this is science, and So, anyways, I think the Antichrist will come in and fairly easily get the acceptance of the citizens of the world. They will accept him, and the 7-year period will start, and he will rule and reign for 3.5 years, and there will be great persecution, great suffering for the Christians, the faithful, and just anybody who doesn't take the mark of the beast. And then he will sit on the throne in the third temple, declaring himself to be God, and that's God's red line. That's when God comes back, and the wrath of God falls. So I think we're stepping already into the first seals of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, Revelation chapter 6. You can read that, see the timeline. Now those seals overlap. And certainly they interact with each other. One probably triggers the other, which like dominoes, and everything starts going down. And I think with the wars and the rumors of wars and the things that are happening right now, I think this very well could be what we're seeing right in front of our eyeballs. So it's a time like no other. We're living in biblical times. We're living in the last days. This is like the Canada Day, or the the day of fireworks, if you will, of the year, where it's shock and awe, and we are living in these days. But it comes with great responsibility to share your faith, to let others know that nefarious figures are leading the world to destruction, and they need to be saved through Jesus Christ, because the Lord's coming back, but not until some big events happen, and a lot of trouble is going to happen. So don't be afraid. You know the end of the Bible, you know the end of the story, and you just need to put your faith in Jesus Christ. Thanks for watching. I'll leave it there. We'll see you in the next video.